you ever get exhausted? I do. Sometimes I get exhausted just because of poor time management or making some wrong choices about how I do my day. But a lot of times I get exhausted just from doing what I'm supposed to do, just from trying to live out this Christian life that God has given me to live out. I want to look in a passage here in Luke, in the beginning of chapter 2. It's during the Christmas story of two people that had to have been exhausted. Let's read in verse 1 here. It says, in verse 1 of chapter 2, "In those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius was governor of Syria. And all went to be registered, each to his own town. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, from the town of Nazareth to Judea, to the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was in the house and lineage of David, to be registered with Mary, his betrothed, who was with child. And while they were there, the time for her to give birth. The time came for her to give birth." So these are two people, this young couple that had to travel from Nazareth all the way to Bethlehem. 60 miles, over 60 miles actually. They probably traveled on a donkey or something like that, or, and she was pregnant with child. I'll bet you both of them were exhausted. And I bet you at some points of this, they knew that this baby was special. They knew that something really unique was happening with them. They might have wondered, what is God doing? We are so exhausted. But what I want to tell you is I see two things in this passage that might encourage you, that should encourage them when you're exhausted. All right, the first thing is this. The exhaustion that they were experiencing, there was a purpose behind it. For them to go from Nazareth all the way to Bethlehem, you're like, why did they have to go 60 miles? Well, back in Micah, the book of Micah, chapter 5, verse 2, there's a prophecy that the Son of God would be born in Bethlehem. And that, them traveling all the way from Nazareth to Bethlehem fulfilled that prophecy, which is part of the reason we can be confident that the scriptures are true today. Then the other thing is God met their needs in their exhaustion. They ended up having the baby in a stable. They gave birth to their firstborn, wrapped in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger because there was no place for him in the inn. Well, God provided for them. God provided for them even though they were exhausted, maybe not how they imagined. So if you're exhausted this Christmas season, if you're exhausted from following Jesus and doing what you're supposed to do, remember this, there may be a purpose that you can't see yet, that God is allowing you to be exhausted, and there's a big purpose behind it. The other thing you need to remember is this, that God's going to provide for your needs even in the midst of your exhaustion. It may not be how you remember that or how you expect it, but it's going to happen. He is going to provide when you ask him. So I hope that encourages you this holiday season if you're exhausted. Thanks a lot.